Hi, and what I'd like to do is to go over some logs here. I got an email from a couple of people a couple of weeks ago now, I'm afraid. There's been a bit of a delay. Asking to check over the logs. So what I thought I'd do, I'll go over these with the particular questions in mind. Also show you a few of the things I do look at with logs. First of all, I want to sort of address the major concern that some people have. It says, hi there, I've really plateaued in DPS for a long time now. As I get more and more gear, my DPS has stopped going up from upgrades. Now, if your DPS has stopped going up from upgrades, and that's really the only thing, it's not likely to be anything you're necessarily doing wrong. Now, we'll go through the logs, obviously. There are other factors at play which can sometimes make looking at your DPS on a particular fight difficult to judge. For example, if the kill time is changing, then that can affect it. Let's say you had, just for the sake of argument, for Retribution Paladin, a kill time of 4.5 minutes previously. You would expect, and let's say there was not a huge amount of movement or anything like that on a fight, you would expect your DPS to be pretty good because you've used Crusade, which is the period of time in which we do all our DPS, basically. Between Crusade, it's just like doing what we can. So you fire off Crusade, do loads and loads of damage in the first half minute or just over, depending on what relics you've got. Then, a couple of minutes later, you can do it again. And then on the 4th minute, you can do it again. So if you finish the fight on 4.5 minutes, absolutely brilliant. Maybe as well, someone died during one of those crusades. Extra gravy. But then let's say over the next few weeks, okay, your gear's getting better, but so is everyone else's. So you're killing the boss more quickly. Now let's say you're killing the boss in 4 minutes. So now the boss is dying just as your crusade is about to end. Just about to come off cooldown, I should say, sorry. That's no good. What you want is the fight to end, as I just said there, when the crusade's ending, not when it's just about to start, because that's the worst possible time. Because what is happening with your DPS, and you can look at this on your logs, is you'll see during crusade it goes up, and then after crusade it goes down, and then crusade comes back up, it goes up, and then down. It's like being on a roller coaster playing as a Retribution Paladin. So what we're going to have is look at some of these logs. Now, as I'm looking at the time, this is just 7.2, so this is just one set. We can also look, for example, at the 7.1.5 ones. These are sort of heroic logs. Now, what I would do is have a look at some, like Triliax is a good one to go just to begin with. Let's have a look at the most recent on this. Would it be that March 22nd? It looks like it is. I mean, if you look here, you say DPS is going down as gear gets better. It's not sort of indicating that, because as you would expect, your lowest percentiles, just in terms of raw damage, but I've picked on this fight because a couple of reasons I'll show you in a minute, are the ones that are more distant, so to speak, time-wise, and your more recent ones tend to be best ones. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily the case, but we'll look at some other fights in a bit as well. But the more recent one, March the 22nd, under the previous patch system, was there. Oh my god, you got loads of rets, and they're all at the top, so I don't really know. There wouldn't be much good at discussing this one. Although I will just point out, I'll tell you something I would point out if I was looking at someone's logs. I would click on them. On this particular fight, oops, no, I want debuffs. Stuffed. Let's have a look how it was for everyone. So at least you were eating your cake. Although you may have, with those damage, I would say you're probably getting your cake from more like nearby. The other thing I can't necessarily tell from here, I'm just going to try and have a look. Let's see, you've got the belt, legendary belt, you've got the legendary cloak, so that's great. I'm just trying to see any other little bits of gear that you've got. You've got faulty countermeasure for your one trinket. Try to see what the other trinket is. Am I blind? Oh, and stable arcana crystal. That's not too bad. So you've got decent ones for this. So let's have a look at a different fight. Let's see if we've got one on the same night. No, we haven't. Let's go back then. Oh, no, there's one last thing I will look at here, actually. While we're here, I always do this. Resources. This is classic for during Crusade. So we go on to resources, and what we want is holy power. And we can see here, not just how much you've gained, but how much was wasted. Obviously, we don't want to waste it. So you haven't wasted any with your builders, which is good. You expect a little bit of wastage with Wake of the Ashes. And this one as well. This is from like the set bonus. Again, we expect a little bit of wastage there. So across the course of the fight, we're not getting very much wasted on the holy power, so that's absolutely fine. No problem at all. So let's go back and check a completely different type of fight. Let's have a look at one that maybe at the time you were thinking was not so great, but we still want a decent number of kills in it. Oh no, that's all Trilliax. Go back. Let's have a look at Botanist Talan, because I say most of these look perfectly decent. You wouldn't really complain about purple percentiles, really. There's only one of these ones, but let's have a look anyway. Again, like you look at this and you think you might not be happy about the percentile, but you are top by some distance in your group. And here's the other thing, you know, about generally kill time. Although the actual specific kill time has a big factor, I mean, we can see here, if you used your Crusades on cooldown, you should have actually finished the fight there 6 minutes 25, just as one was ending. So actually, that would be pretty decent. I am just going to check, though, because you could have used one at the start, 1 2 minutes in. There's a bit of a delay there for some reason. 1 4 minutes and a bit more of a delay. You know, I mean, if you hadn't I mean, you know, there's a bit of... That's a long delay, though. It's nearly 7 seconds before you started, by the looks of it. Is that right? But then here, there's more of a delay. It's not excessive. But if you could have done it a couple of seconds earlier in each case, and maybe there was a reason why you couldn't, if I go through the replay, you know, maybe you were running from something, you had to get to it. So that might be fine. But the point is that it's not... You know, the kill time wasn't terrible for you. It was not ideal because you were still building up your crusade then. But the thing is about you being top of damage there is that means that the overall kill time was quite long. Now, in terms of this percentile on the left, you are competing with people in Mythic guilds who might still be doing that and just blasting through it, as you know, as well as competing with reps for whom they are not the top DPS in that group. Let's have a look at my last one, because I haven't done heroic. When did I last do heroic botanist? Let us find out, shall we? Hang on a minute. I want 7.1.5 ones, don't I? At the time you had 892 item level. Can I find one where I had 892 item level? I mean, here's one where I wasn't at the top. I got like, it was 5 minute 10 kill, which is not good. Yours was 625. So could be argued a little bit better in my case. I did lower overall damage. I didn't quite have the good legendaries then. I had 2 reasonable ones, or good ones. Not quite the best. So there's really nothing wrong with that damage there. But again, we'll just check the usual things. Ultimately, it's about resources. Are you generating enough holy power, and are you spending it without a lot? Oh, there's no wastage at all. Finally, that was lucky. How did you manage not to waste any at all? That was pretty impressive. So you can't complain about that. Your use of holy power is more than fine. You've used Divine Hammer. You haven't used Consecration. You know, on this fight, you would probably use Consecration if you wanted to, like, pad. Because as soon as there's, like, 2 mobs up, unless they're being dragged around all the time, they have to be moved at certain times, of course. As long as they're not being dragged around all the time, then you probably get some use out of Consecration. I mean, I don't use that because that's just, in my view, unnecessary. But on heroic mode, there is nothing really very wrong with this. So, and I'm also not really seeing what you're worried about in that your damage numbers are plateauing as you get better gear. I think it's just, in this case, that you are the top damage dealer in your group, and what that means is that you are effectively being held back. If you are worried about percentile, I mean, I wouldn't worry about percentiles at all, but if you are, that's what's causing it. You will get better percentiles by being in a group where you're bottom damage, but doing the damage that you're doing. In other words, everyone else is loads better than you because you're being dragged along effectively. You're getting much shorter kill times than a full... Imagine it this. If you had a full group of players like yourself, not necessarily all the same spec, but equivalent to yourself, and doing the right levels of damage, you would get a better percentile because the kill time would be much shorter. Which means proportionally, you'd have to spend more of that fight with your cooldowns going. That is, remember, you've got a maximum of about 50 seconds of your potion cooldown, a maximum of half a minute of heroism, and you've got round about between 30 or a bit over 30 seconds of crusade every 2 minutes, say. So you've got to think in terms of that. The amount of damage output you will do over the course of the fight is sort of dependent on proportionally how much of the fight are you spending under those conditions where you can do the most damage. Now, the next one was from someone says, I did your opinion on my logs because I'm stuck on a guild where it's slow progress and I want to move to a new semi-hardcore guild, but I'm afraid if I stuck on damage here in my logs. Now, the first thing I would say, before I'm going to look at these now, but the first thing I would say, and I'm going to put it back to 7.1.5 just for now, is that you need to point things out then. If you're worried that your logs don't make you look good, but you think the reason your logs don't look so good is because of your guild, again, what we've just said about kill times being too long, and that means it's more difficult to produce high percentiles, then what in actual fact you need to do at this point is to point out bits of the logs. So let's have a look here. What on earth am I looking at? Let's put it on all bosses. Right, okay. For some reason, you gave me a link to Chronomatic Anomaly, not all the bosses, which threw me a little bit. Right, so, well, let's go through these. First of all, Scorpion doesn't really matter. You've got over 1 million DPS, job done. No one cares. Chronomatic Anomaly. Let's have a look at this. Now, with Chronomatic Anomaly, you are likely, it depends how you do it as well. This is a classic fight where how much damage you can do completely depends on how you do that fight. If the way we do it, for example, is when the ads spawn on Mythic mode, the ads spawn either side, we move the boss to the one to the left, and people that are on that, which is the majority of people, sort of cleave. And then we send a commando group, which for most of my chronomatic kills, I was in, that chases down those mobs. So the people who are going to be doing that, forget about your damage. You're not going to do any damage because you're spending time moving towards them, even with the movement speed. Then you've got to kill them, all right? And that's one fewer target because the other people are doing exactly the same, but they're cleaving onto the boss as well. So they get an extra target to cleave on. But also, once you finish doing that, you've then got to run back, and you might have a Warlock Gateway, but that only works once every 2 minutes. So that only get you part of the way and only in one direction as well. So there's a lot of travel time where you're doing 0 damage. So that will kick the shit out of your damage. So what I would do at this is I'd have a little look. Most recent one rather than top one. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a look at the replay function, which is really good. Because what I want to see is what happens when that ad appears. Right, that's people are moving. So what I can see here is people, most of the raid have done what we're doing, is moving the boss over to the left, and a commando group's going to the right. And oh look, you're one of that commando group. So your damage is going to be absolutely appalling. So now if I have a look at the actual damage done, the fact that you're ended up being one of the top damage dealers is actually really good because you've had an unfavourable assignment. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to translate this. My French is not that great. So, you've taken Divine Hammer, which is fine, if you want. I mean, this is a fight where you can sort of go with either, really. If you were in the group that's where the boss is going to be dragged to the ads, I would always take Divine Hammer. But Divine Hammer is a solid choice when there's any cleave at all. I tended to not do that myself because I want to focus on boss damage. The ads would go down in a reasonable rate, and I want to focus on the boss damage, which affects my overall output even more. But yeah, this is a solid choice. This is absolutely fine. But obviously you've got travel time, and in that travel time it's not going to be as good. So we're not going to worry about this one at all. So what I'm just going to do, I'm going to go back to another fight, because this one you could point out that, I mean, what I would do in your case is I would point out that you've got this unfavourable assignment in a application to another guild. You're in the commando group, so you're losing lots of damage in that travel time, but you're still maintaining one of the very top damage outputs for that fight in that guild. And it's not like you have to do anything else. The only time where there's no real padding to do on this fight, if you see what I mean. The only time you could have your damage affected even further, where you'd be completely useless, is if you got the time bomb, say. And if you didn't get that, then we can see that quite easily. Time bomb. I bet you weren't one of them, because otherwise that would have really kicked the shit out of your damage, and you weren't. So if there was a really bad one, you can just point out, well, I had time bomb then, so I had to move out. And that would be more than fine. So I'm just going to go back to the other fights. So that's Scorpion Chromatic Anomaly dealt with. Trilliax. I mean, your Trilliax, you can't complain about that. That's not going to stop you getting into a game. Like, if we saw someone, it don't matter what class they were, if we saw anyone of any class looking to join us, and we should be 8 out of 10 in the next day, we'd look at those numbers. I mean, admittedly, that's your best numbers. We would be fine with those numbers. So let's have a look. And I admittedly, remember, these are still just before patch 7.2, because that'll be a different thing after that. But that's when the email was sent. And again, one of the top damage dealers on it. Now, the only thing I would check here is, because here there is a way to not quite pad, but to not do mechanics and therefore maximize your damage. So what we would do on Trilliax, absolute classic. I need to translate again, although I can recognize the symbol. We click on the stuffed. This is the cake. Are you taking your cake? You can quite clearly see, yes, you are. The cake is being handled very well, and you are certainly eating it up. So, again, you would emphasize this. You're maintaining within your raid group very high damage, and you're doing the mechanics. Now, we can't say fairer than that, really. The only way that you could be cocking up mechanics that's not evident here is if, let's say, you get linked with someone and you're not really moving. Because, like, let's say you get linked with someone in range. Yeah, they're going to have to come to melee. But you should really sort of meet them halfway to minimise the damage there and then move back. That's the only thing I would maybe check in that one. But that wouldn't be a huge deal. So your Trilliax is no barrier to you getting into a much more advanced guild at all. It seriously isn't. At the moment, there's only one more Mythic fight to look at. And at the moment, you are... It would be easy. It would be easy to write an application where you point these things out. Your main difficulty is finding a guild that wants a Retribution Paladin. As always, that's always the thing. So, Croesus now. So, let's have a look. Most recent one there. So, we'll have a look at that. Now, on Croesus, of course, what really matters, and you can see here, okay, you're not one of the top ones here, but here's where you might need to look into it a little bit more detail. So what we want to know is soaking, first of all. Now, I need to put translate on before I forget. The part... Croesus is not like a patchwork fight. And so you think about it because it's a tight DPS check. Sure, okay, it is. But, and you can see here, I mean, it enrages on 6 minutes. And it enrages to the point where you all just die because you're dropping the water. So it's 2 minutes short of it. This is quite typical of guilds killing this boss for the first or even second time. So it is a tight DPS check, but the soak, because what people do with the soaking thing is they'll try and stay on the boss the last second, which is fine, but then they don't manage then to soak something, and you do have to soak. So what I would be doing, the best way to check that is with a replay. So I want to know when the burning pitch is coming in. I can't remember what on time. Oh, is this it? Everyone's moving out, so I'm guessing this is it. So hold on, let's just go back a bit. I'm just going to play this a little bit. I should have noted down the times that the burning pitch come in. Now, you're not one of the first to move. But as long as you're actually... I'm going to click on you. The problem with the replay here is we can't actually see. You can see ads on it. Ads show up on it. But the actual soaking zones can't. So I can't really tell whether you're soaking in the best position. Now, but what I can see is after the soak, your guild has soaked very well. You've got, blimey, very well. 2 burning embers. Oh no. Should have held on a minute. Even so, this is still really good soaking. You've soaked all the ones in the back. You've got one there, one there, one there. Where are you? There you are. You could have done some... You're targeting that one. Let's see what you're doing to it. You've stunned it. So you can, you know, you're stunning, you're crowd controlling the mobs. But then you've moved straight to the boss. Now, that's what I would like to do, to be honest with you. So you've moved straight to the boss, and you're just cleaving off that ad onto the boss. But you can notice some other melee are going to the other ads. These other ads are not dying very quickly. One thing I would do is try and not just be the guy that moves forwards and kills whatever is next to the boss and then just sort of stays there. Because at this point, there's 2 ads still alive. There's just 1 ad still alive. You've been on Croesus and all that time. And other melee, because like if I looked at if all the melee was still there, I might think, well, that raid group has just decided that the range will deal with those. But that doesn't seem to be the case because some melee moved back to kill them and you didn't. That is maybe something that I would look at. However, what I would say in terms of getting into another guild is a lot of people recruiting wouldn't necessarily look at that. They might. They wouldn't necessarily look at that. So what I would do, if I were you, I'm just going to go back to the... In fact, no, I'm going to close that down and go... Oh no, we're there. Scorpion, you don't need to say anything about. Chronomatic Anomaly, I would emphasise the fact that you're doing, in your guild, one of the top damage, and you've got that very unfavourable job to do as well, where you're losing a lot of DPS because of the downtime for moving. Trilliax emphasise the fact that you're maintaining within your group high DPS, and that is there's nothing wrong with that damage. I mean, that's your best one, as I say, but your median is also not far behind it. You've consistently good damage, and you're dealing with the cake as well. I think you actually help your guild, to be fair. I'm looking at your guild now, and I'll be honest, we're on 7 out of 10. We should be on 8 out of 10, but we bloody well better be tomorrow. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, your guild deals with stuff on these fights better than ours does. So you're actually being helped out by your... I don't know why your guild is not actually further, because they're dealing with the soaks very well. They're dealing with the cake very well on Trilliax. They're dealing with stuff well. I don't get why they're not further. I really don't. But anyway, and then with Croesus, just talk about the, you know, I wouldn't say too much about Croesus. You don't want to draw too much attention to it. I'm not saying you're doing badly on it, but there are situations, like if you were one of the melee who's moving back to ads when others weren't, I would emphasize that, but you're not, so I wouldn't talk too much about it. So I would focus more on those, the fact that you're doing mechanics, the fact that you're still maintaining good damage within your raid group, because people understand that if you're one of the top damage dealers in your raid group, you would do a lot more damage out in terms of output, not actual DPS, but in terms of your finished numbers would be better if you're in a guild that kill things quicker. Then we can have a quick look at heroic in terms of what percentage you're pulling, because we expect mythic guilds in heroic to basically blast through them all, good kill times. You don't even have to worry about mechanics too much as long as you are actually doing the mechanics. People are not going to look at this for your mechanics. They're going to look for your numbers. They want to see like the purple and orange numbers more. and that looks fine. This one, forget about. Everyone knows Scorpion's ridiculous because on some heroics, people deliberately get knocked back on the shockwave to generate more ads, or they'll just drag the boss to where the ads are, like on LFR, and just spawn in endless ads. So forget about that completely. But for these ones, these all look really good as well. So all you have to do when you're applying to a much more advanced guild is instead of just linking the Warcraft logs, and I did a video on this yesterday in terms of the recruitment process, the application process, I should say, sorry. Don't just link your logs, link them and then link individual bits of them and emphasize what you're doing well in terms of mechanics as well. That should be no barrier. You should easily be able to get, if there was a guild, I'm going to say, if there was a guild on 6, 7, 8 out of 10, whatever, and they were looking for Retribution Paladin, you could write an application that would get you a trial spot. Okay? I absolutely guarantee it. So anyway, those are just some of the things I would look through if I was going through logs myself. I hope it was a little bit interesting and useful. The point with these two people is they're not doing a lot wrong, okay? So it's not like, oh, I can see you doing this wrong, you should improve on that, which is maybe what they wanted to hear, but you're not doing a lot wrong. You're actually doing things generally okay. I could go in and study things to the nth degree, but what's the point? At the level you're doing actually really well. I have nothing to teach you really here because what you are doing is well. You just need to have a bit more confidence that the reason why your DPS isn't going up as high as you maybe think it should is just because it's a team game. It's within the game you're in. Like, you could have the best footballer in the world, but in the worst football team in the world, and you're not going to win a lot of games, because it's a team event. And you need to think of it like that. But anyway, as I said, I hope you found it interesting. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.